You know how every best friend duo has their thing?
Some scrapbook, some bake. We share a Google search history the FBI would have questions about.
Welcome to Bloody Besties, the true crime podcast hosted by two lifelong friends with a questionable idea of what is light conversation and the emotional stability of a cracked chalk outline.
I'm the daughter of two law enforcement officers, which means my childhood bedtime stories often ended with, and that's why you should always lock your doors.
And I'm a forensic scientist who has spent many years looking at things most people can't after lunch.
Each episode, we break down real cases armed with actual science, questionable coping skills, and the energy of two people who joke through the horror because therapy is expensive.
We present the evidence, debunk the myths, and explore the human stories behind the headlines.
Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we get fired up, and actually ask, how is this person a functioning adult?
So if this sounds right up your alley, then Bloody Besties is where you belong, where friendship meets murder and the truth always leaves a trace. Welcome to our bestie community. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bloody Besties. This is always fun. This is going to be our second time recording this episode. If you noticed, we may have missed a week of release because we already recorded this. I went to listen to it and I sounded like an airplane pilot that has swallowed the microphone. So new microphone on deck again. And I have figured out that I'm going to record under a blanket today to see if I can get some better sound. So if you hear giggling, it's because the blanket has fallen to the point where I can't read anymore. Alrighty. So this time we got a listener request from Wynn Felks. I hope I got her last name right. She did give me permission to use her name. And she gave us the suggestion of horse crimes. This sent me down a rabbit hole because my other name should just be Alice. I go down all the rabbit holes. And this is now going to be a 5-part series. And all the stories kind of connect to each other. So make sure that you're listening to them in order.
And I'm excited because I'm a horse girly.
Okay. Melissa May, what was the topic that I gave you for episode 1 of this?
Today's episode is racehorses.
All right.
And Ruby, did you know that almost every modern thoroughbred racehorse can trace its lineage back to 3 foundation sires?
I did not know that. And part of me is like weirded out by that because I just think of incest and inbreeding.
It's called line breeding in animal terms. So it's okay in certain species, but you can't do it too many times.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then.
People don't do it. Please don't. Don't be a Lannister.
Yeah, we did have that whole incest episode. It never ends well.
We did, yeah. The 3 foundation sires are the Darley Arabian, the Byerly Turk, and the Godolphin Arabian. They were the fast, powerful horses that they were bred with local mares to create the thoroughbred lineage that continues to thrive today. You might know Secretariat and Man o' War. Those are the 2 I picked to look into their breeding. The Secretariat goes to the Darley Arabian, and Man of War is the Godolphin Arabian. And
I feel like I need to look this up on my phone, but I believe we have here in Middle Tennessee, it is Belmead. And I believe that the trainer for Secretariat actually worked on Belmead. Am I right?
Belmead was so influential in thoroughbred breeding that famous horses like Seabiscuit, who's related to Secretariat, and Barbaro, directly back to Belmead.
Well, look at me go.
Right. Good memory, of course.
So there we go. Secretariat's bloodline can be traced back to horses that were bred at Belmead, which is right here in Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
If you hear me grabbing the mic, I apologize. It's because the blanket has fallen so bad that it's moving my microphone. So sorry if you hear a little bit of mic touching. Trust me, it'll just sound better on the other end. And poor Melissa May only gets to see half my face because the blanket's covering the other half. I need to come up with a better system. All right, getting into today's story. George Charles Brown's body was found on April 2nd, 1984, in his vehicle, which was a 1973 green Ford Falcon sedan. Love me a Ford Falcon. If I didn't get a Mustang as my first car, I was going to get a Ford Falcon. I just love the look of them. Do you even know what they look like?
I can't picture it. No. I know what your Mustang looks like. I know very well what your Mustang looks like.
Yeah, you've been there since day one of me owning it, and I've had it since I was 16.
Oh, I'm glad you went with the Ford, with the Mustang.
You don't like it?
No, not particularly. No.
Okay. The license plate of this car was GMH498, which is how they were able to trace it so quickly back to the owner, which was George. This vehicle was found in the bushland of Bullytops, north of Wollongong, Sydney, Australia, at around 11 p.m. He was 38 when he was killed, and he had head injuries prior to the fire being set. His skull had spiderweb cracks, including one right above his right ear, and saw-like crack in the same area. And that indicates like just a blunt force breaking. So it's basically the reason that they were calling it that is that it looks more like not a cut, but a forceful crack.
Huh.
His legs were broken and his arm was bent backwards.
Gross.
Like the complete wrong way. And so one thing, when bodies burn, they usually wind up in a pugilistic stance. So they curl
like
up and their hands ball into fists. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the pugilistic. And so the fact that his arm was bent the wrong way and not curled up towards the front of him, that's how they knew that that happened prior to the fire. The coroner also found that he had probably been forced to drink a large quantity of alcohol prior to his death, and his watch stopped at 10:56 p.m. So remember, his body was found at 11 p.m., so he was found 4 minutes after presumably the fire was started, because that's when his watch would have stopped.
Okay.
Theoretically. It was known that George had left the stables at Rosebery in Sydney around 6:40 p.m. the same night that he was found. He had plans to meet someone before going home, where he was expected to be at 8:10 p.m. He never arrived. George, growing up, he had his sister Jean. She was 10 years older than him, and she helped raise him after their mother passed away while he was still a baby. So she became the lady of the house, if you will, and his maternal figure. They grew up around horses, so it was only natural that George would take the path that involved them. She had a desperate need to find out what happened to her brother, and I saw in one article that he did have kids, but I couldn't find out how many, if this was true, where they were, none of it. And so I would be remiss not to mention it if he did have kids, but I just couldn't find the articles about them. Police were looking to see if this murder had anything to do with a recent horse race. 2 days prior to the murder, Risley, a horse that was trained by George, had finished second to last in a Brisbane race. In early March 1984, he told his friend, Jeff Newcomb Brown, that he, quote unquote, had something up his sleeve to help his stable make more money. During the inquest, it was discovered that the murder may have been linked to the fine cotton scandal. Fine cotton was an Australian thoroughbred gelding, and on August 18th, 1984, which if you could do the math, this was months after George was killed. So how could this race have anything to do with George's murder?
Right.
So this whole thing, we have to go all the way back now. All right, so this is how it's all going to be tied in. And trust me, it will all be tied in. It's hard to see.
Well, it has slowed you down, which is nice.
Huh?
It has slowed you down. Your talking is slower, which is nice.
Oh, okay. There we go. I thought my micro printing would have done that. All right, so we're going all the way back to Wendy Smith. She was a horse trainer who had dealings with a man named John Chandler. John Chandler also went by John Gillespie, and they became associated because John had her train a horse for him. They lost touch after this training, but he popped back up again in her life when he told her that he was working undercover for the Queensland police. This was an absolute lie. Wendy had no idea that this con man John had over 300 convictions. So if she knew anything about that, she never would have gone along with this. Yes, I could guarantee that.
Clear of that guy.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, con men, they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, the ones that don't get caught.
Right.
John asked Wendy to train a horse for him, This was Dashing Solitaire. And the way that horses get named, even though they don't sound like they make sense, apparently they do make sense. Like Dashing Solitaire makes no sense to me. Why is that a name? Why do they have to have two names?
They don't have to have two, and I'm not really sure why, but Dashing Solitaire, if I were to look into his pedigree, probably has a dash for cash, and they're taking dashing, like there's dashing to fame, there's all sort of words where you want to throw the dash in, kind of like to honor the ancestors.
Okay.
And the Jockey Club and the American Quarter Horse Association are pretty well known for their registry names. The Jockey Club is super strict. They reject about 30% of their submissions because the submissions directly match or are very similar to existing names. They don't allow you to get anywhere close to a horse that is famous or anything current. Whereas the Quarter Association, they're more lenient. You can do sound-alike names as long as they're spelled differently. Like Cool Cash, Coolcash. You can do Cool Cash with a K, Kool.
Why would you want to do that?
I don't know why you'd want to get so close to an existing name, but you have to, when you submit, you have to put, I think I did 3 names for both of my horses when I submitted in hopes that they would get my first one that I really wanted. And I did. But
I see that you have to like register your horse.
You don't have to, but if you're going to enter in like major horse shows, you want them to get points because the horse shows you get points towards like national championships and my Echo, your nephew, we did horse showing and we got points.
Okay. Yeah, my beautiful Echo, man. There is no horse like him.
Right. He's a famous little horse.
Yeah. Well, John didn't tell Wendy that Dashing Solitaire was to be swapped out for the poor performing Fine Cotton in the... Okay, again, if you are part of like the horse racing fan club, anything like that, I know I'm going to be saying this wrong and I'm probably going to be saying too much. It's like saying a website with HTTPS, like for what I'm about ready to say. So they were going to race in the Commerce Novice Second Division handicap over 1,500 meters at Eagle Farm. Hopefully that means something to someone. Days before the race, Wendy got a call. Dashing Solitaire had gotten injured in a paddock accident days before the race. He had been spooked by kangaroos. How very Australian.
Yes.
So he was spooked by kangaroos and ran into a barbed wire fence.
Yikes.
So Dashing Solitaire was too injured to be able to race. The horse had been staying at the paddock of Hayden Hatana. I looked it up like way long ago, and again, remember, this is the second recording, and I don't even remember how I said it last time. So I'm going to go with Hayden Hatana. He was in charge also of training Fine Cotton. So Dashing Solitaire, who was going to replace Fine Cotton, was in the same paddock, and then Dashing Solitaire got injured. So what were they going to do? Along with Hayden and John in this scheme, the unwitting Wendy, there was more. Hayden's brother Pat was going to be the jockey. He had recently served time with John, and that's how they all got involved in this scheme together. There was also businessman Robert North, salesman John Dixon, and electrical technician Tommaso Di Luzio. The rest of those guys don't really come up in the rest of the story, so just know that they existed as well. This wasn't just a two-man operation. After Dashing Solitaire's injury, Wendy took him home to treat him, and the crew decided that they needed a new ring-in for Fine Cotton. Yeah, so like ring-in, ringer is, I know I have the hardest G's in the world. I don't know why. I cannot say it any other way. But it's called a ring-in in races, apparently. I don't know why it's called a ring-in and not substituting a ringer.
I could not find it either. It just reminds me of boxing. I don't know.
Yeah, like a ring.
Right.
I don't understand. But the reason that I bring that up for ring in is because that's how like the whole scandal got labeled is, you know, it was a ring in.
On the news articles, you said.
Yeah. And so the funny thing is obviously I'm telling you this because it's a scandal and they got caught. So I'm not spoiling anything. Uh, so they needed a new horse to replace Fine Cotton. This is when they found a horse, Bold Personality. The problem is, Bold Personality looked nothing like Fine Cotton. They were two totally different shades of brown, and Fine Cotton had these very distinct white markings on his lower hind legs that resembled socks. And everybody knew Fine Cotton had these little sock hind legs, right?
Yes.
So you're going to substitute him with a horse that looks nothing like him. So they thought that they had a plan. What would your plan be?
If I was going to be a cheat, I would I would take my horse show paint and paint some markings that would terribly resemble that horse.
And they did pretty much that, but they went a step further and they tried to dye Bold Personality to match Fine Cotton's hair color. Unfortunately, the dye turned him orange. And we're talking like not ginger hair color like meat orange, orange.
What happens when the horse sweats? Like, racehorses get very sweaty when they warm up, when they race. Like, what happens after you dye your hair and you sweat, Ruby?
It starts running down my face. On a recent dye job? Heck yeah, it does. It's also why I can't wear like any white hats or anything if I know it's going to be raining or hot.
And you have to be super aware of your bed linens.
Oh, yeah. No, those are all destroyed.
I used
all
to sleep
of them
with a towel. I used to put a towel on my pillow.
Oh, I still do, and it still goes through.
Oh, no. You have a lot of hair.
Yeah. And it takes, I'll wake up, I'll go to bed with wet hair, and I'll wake up and it's still wet. So I have no hope.
Wow.
But it's fine once it starts washing out. Unfortunately, for Bold Personality, though, it would have been a fresh dye job, and it was a bad dye job. Like I said, he is neon orange.
God.
So they know that this is not going to work out. So they decided to wash the dye off and just hope nobody really noticed the horse hair color. The other thing is the hind legs, they used spray paint. And they painted his back hooves white with spray paint. It didn't really stick. So then they had to wrap his legs in bandages. So this poor horse is going through it just to look like this other horse, and he looks nothing like him. And the bungling and the coloring isn't anything. So Bold Personality was dehydrated, and that was because they had to, sneak him everywhere because he wasn't supposed to exist. So he was stuck in a horse trailer in August. So it's super hot and sweaty. And so he starts getting dehydrated. So what they did is they decided to try and give him a saline dip, but this caused him to bleed profusely. So he's, been dyed. He's been spray painted. He's been wrapped in bandaging tape. He's got a saline rinse. Now he's bleeding all over the place. And so on the day of the race, August 18th, they had a backup plan. So they decided, maybe we'll race Fine Cotton after all. We'll just dope him up on a crud ton of drugs and have a horse on speed racing.
Right.
So now you've got Fine Cotton. Yeah. So now you've got Fine Cotton completely dosed up. You've got Bold Personality that has literally just gone through hell. And they're trying to figure out which one to race that day. Both would be racing under the name of Fine Cotton. All right, so they get to the track, and they did decide to run Bold Personality as Fine Cotton, and they decided to leave Fine Cotton to recover from the drugs. Because they basically thought, if we run him on these drugs, we risk him dying. Wow. And they didn't want that.
And they probably didn't do testing before. They do nowadays.
This is 1984.
80s and Australia.
So, yeah, early 80s. Probably not. Not yet, anyway. After this, they probably do.
Sure did.
We're now going to bring in Lester Grimmett. He was a racing official that's also called a steward.
A steward is basically, like you said, a racing official. They ensure a fair and safe racing conduct. They inspect the track, they inspect the horses and the equipment to make sure they're all safe and legal. They oversee the weighing in of the jockeys as well. So before the race starts, jockeys have to get in a line and get on a scale. And I believe I've seen footage of them holding their saddle that they're going to have on as well. And that's included. And it's about 113 to 118 pounds to be a jockey. So I definitely don't qualify.
No, but I literally just came across this story because you know how our cell phones always listen to us. I need to pull up. Hang on. It was crazy. I need to pull up this guy's name. So our phones are always listening to us, and mine, I guess, must have been sitting right next to me while we were recording the last episode. And what it told me is there was a writer, a jockey called Frank Hayes, and he literally died of a heart attack in the middle of the race, but he stayed on the horse. The horse finished the race and they got first place.
Whoa. When was this?
This was 1923, and it was at Belmont Park's steeplechase.
Oh, steeplechase. Holy crap.
The horse's name was Sweet Kiss. Mm-hmm. And so the reason that I bring this up now is people believe, because he was super young, and people believe that the whole reason that he had the heart attack is because he was trying to cut weight so drastically to be able to run race.
To make weight.
So I think he was trying to lose like 10 pounds in 4 days. So he dehydrated himself and did all this stuff just to drop weight for the race. But he is still the only jockey to ever win a race while dead.
Racing while dead.
Right?
That's awesome. That's neat. And steeplechasing to top it off. You know what that is, right?
No, not a clue.
Oh. It's okay.
Going with it.
So it's a racetrack. It'll be on grass though. And it's got the hedges and the horses jump over. It's very British. Queen Elizabeth did it. I watched hours of footage because I used to work in the movie industry. I watched hours of footage of, she didn't do it. She attended all the time, of steeplechases.
Oh, how funny. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
So
that's what it is. Oh, that's him?
I should have guessed while looking at that. He's literally jumping over a hedge. And I'm like, no, never heard of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they crossed the finish line and he was dead.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
So anyway, that's what happens if you try and cut weight too fast and then get on a horse and try and do this race. Anyway, so speaking of weight, that can happen. But I mean, that is kind of a fun record though. The only jockey ever to have won a race while dead. Like there's something about that. I don't know if other jockeys have died in races though. I might have to look that up before our next episode.
They've died, yes, but from accidents, not, well, I don't think they finished. They usually fall off.
That's crazy. I mean, muscle memory. At least that's what I'm guessing. So Lester Grimmett, he noticed Fine Cotton, whose really bold personality, the odds, like the betting odds, he was like, something's really off here because the odds started at the day at 33 to 1. Then they jumped 20 to 1, then 15 to 1, and finally landed at 7 to 2, right? So why were so many people betting on Fine Cotton when he was known to be an underperformer? And why did the betting odds change so drastically on the day of the race? But, I mean, he couldn't really prove anything. Bold personality passed all of the initial check-ins before the race, and the race was on. Bold personality led the pack, and he ended in a photo finish with Harbor Gold, and he won by only half a head. Wow. So now we're going to get under some finer scrutiny, if you will, because they're like, okay, the odds were bad enough. Now we have a winner, and we have to make sure. Lester, ever the Hawkeye, he sounded the alarm. He was like, okay, you've got these odds that spiked completely, and then a horse that's normally an underperformer just won. I think not. So he thought that something fishy was going on. And that's when he looked at the horse's white socks, and he saw that they were wrapped in bandages and the white paint was running off his sweaty old legs, just like you said. Sweaty legs and paint don't mix. Right. So as soon as everybody started noticing that the paint was running, they all started shouting, "Ring in." The payouts immediately stopped. Hayden was ordered to present Fine Cotton's papers, and he claimed not to have them. Have you ever not shown up with your horse's papers to a race?
Yeah,
Don't you
I don't
need
know
them?
how it works. No, I don't know how it works with racing, thoroughbred racing, but no. You'd put your registration number by the name, and I guess it would be on them to look it up. And the horse's picture is on the papers.
Yeah, and I think that's where everything started coming to a head because they were just like, okay, something's really fishy here. He didn't have Fine Cotton's papers. Even more bad luck. Bold Personality's real owner, because Bold Personality was not owned by any of these men, walks up to the finish ring because he happened to be at the track that day, and he just looks at the horse, and yells out, "Hey, that's Purse." So Bold Personality was not even his real name. His real name was Percy. So this owner, without even realizing what he did, he confirmed that this horse was not Fine Cotton.
Yeah.
So Fine Cotton was officially disqualified, and that meant that anybody who placed a bet on him was not allowed to collect anything. Keep in mind, so many people were betting that it changed the odds so drastically, so a lot of people were out of a lot of money because this scandal was caught. Wait, is it a scandal if you don't get caught?
Huh. Yeah, I think it is.
This con, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if scandal only means that you got caught. I'll have to look that up one day. Not right now. The media started looking at all the people that had placed the bets, and they found that the money was coming from as far away as Fiji and New Guinea, and it appeared allegedly that all of these bets were at the encouragement of Robbie Waterhouse, who was the son of legendary bookmaker Big Bill Waterhouse. A bookmaker is basically a bookie that accepts and pays out on bets, and so they make money on losers. So if you ever wonder, and they can make a lot of money.
Or you get beat up. Pay up or get beat up.
Yeah. Yeah. Break those legs.
Break that arm backwards.
Oh, no. Too soon. Robbie and Bill were questioned by the Australian Jockey Club, and they found that the pair, quote unquote, knew of the plan, and Robbie's judgment read, and I'm going to read this verbatim, quote, "The committee is left with the overwhelming inference that such central organization and direction either came from or involved R.W. Waterhouse," end quote. The pair were then banned from the racecourses worldwide, and their bookmaking licenses were revoked. Robbie was sentenced to 8 months of periodic detention in jail for making a false statement and to the Racing Appeals Tribunal. Their ban was in place for 14 years. So they couldn't do anything having to do with racing for 14 years when that was their entire livelihood.
It's not worth it.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But remember, this whole thing started with George's murder. So it's not about the race. So how does that all tie in? Because it happened months after George was murdered. All right, so now we're going to jump all the way up to 2009. And detectives in the Homicide Squad's Unsolved Homicide Unit created Strike Force Combine, which was put in place to reinvestigate the crime. And in 2019, that long, they launched a $1 million New South Wales government reward. There was an article published in Australian Daily and the Herald Sun in 2021, written by an investigative journalist by the name of Andrew Rule. He claimed that the late Tongan king, I'm going to make you read that name,
King Tofa Ahau Tupo IV.
Right? Okay, I wasn't even going to try. And a former diplomat, Bill Waterhouse, who aside from being a bookmaker was also Tonga's honorary consul general to Australia, and that he helped him to murder George. The article came about because there were statements made to the police by Bill's son, David. So Bill's other son, because the first one was Robbie. So Robbie was in it with Bill. David is another son. However, there was a falling out because there was a trust, and David, I think he was cut out of the trust, or he didn't get as much money or something like that. So everybody's saying that David was just kind of bitter Betty against Bill. So David testified about his father and brother at the New South Wales Racing Authority hearing, And he was saying that they had bet 800 grand on fine cotton that day.
Wow.
But Robbie was only legally allowed to bet 66 grand. So more than 8 times the amount that he was allowed to bet. He said that his dad told him days after the race that they would have made millions if they were able to pull the scam off. The Tonga royal family denied the claims, and everyone is claiming that the allegations are only made as collateral damage of the family dispute over the trust. So everybody's just saying David's just being spiteful. Like, none of this is true. Tonga has nothing to do with this. This, of course, came about after the king had died in 2006 and Bill died in 2019. Andrew went further and he wrote a book called Chance in 2021, and it included the stories of, this is a quote that I got from his book review thing, and it said that the book is about betting plunges planned more carefully than bank robberies, of tricky trainers, reckless jockeys, and bold bookmakers. And the book states that there is an 8-page dossier presented to the police by David, who said that his dad had threatened him into silence after he admitted to David to sending 2 men to torture and murder George. So David is saying that his dad had something to do with the murder and torture of George because of betting and racing.
Yeah.
He said that Bill told him that he sent the men to George to collect money on what was given to him prior to the race, where he was supposed to perform another ring-in. And he was supposed to submit Philly Risley. Remember, that's the one that finished second to last at the very beginning of the story. And that was at the Doombin 2 days before he was killed. So Risley wasn't, according to David, by what his father said, Risley was supposed to be subbed out with a better performing horse. And then 2 days later, George was murdered. David said that his father made the confession on a drive in 1989. He said that he kept quiet because he was being menaced by criminal Bertie Kidd. And that's Bertie. I know I say it weird. It's not Bertie tweet. It's Bertie. So, who is Bertie Kidd? And why is he so terrifying? Bertie was one of Bill's alleged enforcers for the interstate race fixing racket. Remember, pay up, break your knees. Well, Bertie was the knee breaker. Part of this dossier said that it was said to include threatening letters from Bertie to David, naming David's children and basically stating harm will come to you. Bertie straight up said, yeah, I sent him threatening letters, but it had nothing to do with Bill. It had to do with a debt that was owed. So did David receive threatening letters from Bertie? Yup. Did it have anything to do with any of this scandal? According to Bertie, nope.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So who is this Bertie? He was a master safe breaker, a forger, and a race fixer. He participated in books that were written about his life that were worked alongside with Simon Griff. And they are a total of 3 books: The Audacious Kid, The Notorious Kid, and The Infamous Kid, because his last name is Kidd. So they kind of went with it. Bertie did say that he did some work for Bill, and he wrote in the second book that the punishments for the Waterhouse men was a terrible injustice, and said that neither one of them were involved in the scandal of the fine cotton race. So, again, Bertie is like, literally, Bill is not doing anything wrong. So maybe Bertie is just like trying to help a friend. I don't know. Bertie was approached by John Gillespie about setting up the horse ring-in. Bertie was in charge of organizing the betting funds to be handed over. So Bertie was basically saying, I didn't need the Waterhouses. I was handling the money on my own end. Could be true. After the scandal of fine cotton race, Hayden gave an interview with 60 Minutes before turning himself in to be jailed for 6 months, and he too was banned from the Australian race courses for life. Hayden's the one, remember, his brother was the jockey and Hayden had the paddock, and he was the trainer of fine cotton. He was also the one that was housing Dashing Solitaire when he got injured. So he was knee-deep in this whole thing. He stated in his confession that he only went along with the plan because a man told him if he didn't, he would end up like that trainer, Brown. So again, he's saying that it relates back to George's murder. John Gillespie served for... I have bad English. I put John Gillespie served 4 years, but I wrote it FOR.
He served he was for years.
He served for years. John Gillespie served he served 4 years for the crime, and upon his release, he went to Asia, and he did not keep his nose clean because he did set up bars there, legal bars, and in 1998, he was named as being involved with a crew in the Philippines that were setting up fake passports for the micronation of Dominion of Melchizedek. Did I say that right?
Melchizedek.
Oh, and I don't even know what a micronation is.
In this instance, it's a fake nation, and they're from the Central African Republic.
So when they're saying fake passports, they mean fake passports, right?
Yeah,
like this isn't falsified.
Correct. And it was like set up to only commit bank fraud.
Oh my gosh. If it wasn't a felony, I would want a passport from there just to have it.
For funsies.
That would be fun. Like, I don't want to use it. I just want to have it. In the 2000s, he was investigated for scams with racehorses yet again. This is John Gillespie again. He was also collected artwork. He had one of them snake oil salesman things with an anti-wrinkle cream that did not work. And then in 2016, it was found out that he was the founding director of 2 companies in the Bahamas that didn't exist. So he gave himself a title in a company so that way he could raise funds, get loans, things like that for a company that never existed. That's illegal.
Yeah.
So back to Wendy. Remember, she had nothing to do with any of this. All she thought is that she was training a horse. That's all she knew. She lost her right to enter any horses in any race ever again. And she was no longer allowed to be a racehorse trainer. And she knew nothing about it. She did nothing wrong.
I would be, what's it called? When you try to dispute that, I'd be going to the board.
Oh, an appeal?
Yeah, appealing that decision.
Yeah. I mean, she might have, but I mean, I don't know if she saw it as a blessing in disguise or whatnot, because she completely switched her life and she joined musical theater. So she left her horse racing days, but then she did a total career swap, which is crazy.
Probably less money.
Oh, I'm sure. But I mean, if it brings you joy, I took a massive pay cut to have a job that brings me joy.
Yeah, I think we all have.
So sometimes money ain't worth it.
Right. Your sanity.
Fine Cotton himself, he obviously recovered from the drugs, and he lived until the age of 32. He was bought by a movie producer who wanted to make a movie about his life because of the whole scandal that everybody knew about. I don't think that movie ever got made. Bold personality, whose name was Percy, never raced again after that, and he just lived the remainder of his life in peace, just being a little pasture boy. Mm-hmm. Lester Grimmett retired after more than 50 years working as a steward at the tracks. He was 73, and from what I saw, he's still alive, and he still has his notes from the day of the Fine Cotton scandal.
Nice.
As for George Brown's killer, he still has never been found.
That's wild.
So if you know anything about his murder, you could be $1 million richer if you give a call to the New South Wales police.
Okay.
So don't forget to listen in to the next 4 episodes that will also be on horse crimes. Thank you again, Wynn Folks, for giving me such a ripe topic to dig my teeth into. We really appreciate it. And so does Melissa May, since she's a horse girly.
I love it.
All right. Talk to you next time.
Bye, y'all.